Ahoy, landlubbers, it's me, your valiant Captain Vasco. And I'm getting pumped, getting excited. If you're watching along with the rest of my Let's Play, then you'll know that we're rapidly approaching the end game. In fact, if you know what's going on, you can tell by the look of this cave that we're very close to taking on Kaos, which means we gotta prepare. And part of that training is to take on the last set of arena challenges, which I will do my best to give good advice and whatnot, as I've done in the past. But first, as we did last time, we're going to wisely change out our luck-o-tron bulbs for some experience. Because actually, I think everyone's just about ready to buy their final upgrades, unless I've forgotten something. But we won't be doing that today. Today we're going to work with what we've got. So let's show off. Hey Brock, how's it going?
Alright, ready to kick some tail?
I think we are. Let's go, Flint. Let's prove what we've got.
Oh yeah! We members are very happy to have you as a competitor. Just pick an arena you want to compete in, and we can start kicking tails and taking names!
Alright, since we've already defeated Brock's Rump, Roaster, Ruckus, and Chaos's Royal Flush, which has much less alliteration to it, it's time to take on Pipsqueak's Mincemeat Mayhem, which is somewhere in the middle in terms of alliteration. First challenge up is the sticky situation. This one's interesting. I guess it's kind of similar to the smoke bombs because it's sort of an innocuous hazard that will keep bothering us for the entirety of the challenge. But this one's a little different. Alright, we are wisely advised not to get stuck in the goo. But honestly, the goo isn't that big of a problem. Unlike some of the other hazards we've come across, walking in it or getting hit by it doesn't actually do us any damage. The most important part, however, is to have some move that will either let you dash or some other thing, just so you can avoid getting stuck when the larger enemies arrive in the later waves. So for us, that's going to be this boulder dash, which is actually a really good name for that move. I don't know why they didn't call it that. Oh, I forgot that I had petrified a Chompy over there. It's interesting. Smash! Smash! Yeah, the hammer could be good in some... Oh, hey there. Yeah, the hazards are something to watch out for. I believe in this particular challenge, the arena will sort of rotate between the available hazards here. So it starts with the saws in the middle, and then it switches to the saws on the side, but I don't think you ever get both at once in this one. I think that'd be a little bit too difficult with the goo happening, but I might be mistaken about that. But yeah, the boulder dash is actually really good to move pretty quickly. The only trouble is you're still vulnerable while doing it, which I've mentioned in the past, but I think that is... Whoa. How did I end up over there? All of my rocks were over by that Cyclops with the axe there. It's weird. Alright. Oh, let's dodge out of the way. Try and do that again. There we go. Not doing too badly so far. I think one of the most important factors to keep in mind here, we have a lot of relatively weak enemies throughout this one. The last wave becomes a little bit more challenging, but the most important thing is to have a way to get yourself out of the goo. Because while it's not that difficult when you're only facing down chompies, yeah, here we go with the saws on the side. But yeah, it's the goo isn't that intimidating when the enemies are pretty small. What? Where? Yeah, the biggest problem with the dash is that it's fairly hard to control and you still take damage while doing it. And the two sort of combine to mean that you can suddenly just be like attacked by an enemy you're like not even like looking at. Like it's sometimes just hard to gauge exactly what's going on with this move, which is why it helps out Flint a lot in battle, but it's not as reliable as some of the other moves, like maybe Laboon's ability to belly slide and quickly get out of danger sort of thing. But yeah, the goo isn't a big problem when the enemies are still weak, but here we start to see they're going to get a little bit more tough. We've got the Blaze Brewers, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's fairly difficult to dodge their fire moves, and their melee attack is just incredibly strong for what it does. I don't know why that is. Of course, he's a large enough enemy. I think you could sort of like determine who like the heavy-hitting enemies are based on who does and doesn't get affected by the petrifying blast that our stone giant here has. Larger enemies are generally unaffected, whereas smaller ones can actually be turned to stone and fully frozen for a considerable amount of time. I'm not even sure there's an upgrade that affects the length that they're petrified for. I honestly don't remember, but at least at this point you can stop them for a good amount of time. So let's see if I was wrong about all of the hazards turning on at once. I don't think they actually do that. It's a little bit much. I haven't turned them on yet, so I think I'm correct about this. But that doesn't mean that this is going to be a cakewalk. No, not so much. Unfortunately, there's still quite a number of enemies who can cause us a lot of headaches. See, all of my stones were on the left side of the screen, and then when I got out of that, like, boulder roll, I, like, appeared at the top of the screen. Like, it's just a little bit too wonky to be reliable, which is unfortunate, because I think if it really worked the way it feels like it should, then Flint would be a real force to be reckoned with. But as it is, he can often end up in, well, sticky situations, you could say, which is appropriate for our goop challenge. Gross thing. I wonder what the goop is made of. I'm hoping not snot. I don't know. What do you guys think it is? I think it's just like some sort of weird, like, bad guy glue. Yeah, let's try and, okay, that worked a little bit. Yeah, don't really want to get caught between two blaze brewers. That seems bad. So let's try and get behind. Maybe blow up a little bit. And then just some hammer time. Yeah, the hammer's really powerful, but as I've pointed out in the past, it's also fairly difficult to aim. So I guess that's really the biggest drawback to Crusher as a Giants character. Very hard to use, but you can certainly get the job done if you know what you're doing, which I usually don't, but today, I've succeeded. Also worth noting, the rewards this time out are pretty hefty. This is the first challenge in this set, and it's worth 1,800 gold, so that's a lot. I suppose I didn't have to work so hard at keeping everyone in the money last level. Next up, we're going to keep our eye on the prize by having Pegasus take on the Birthday Bash challenge. This is very similar to the Present Protector, especially since they're both birthday related, but the goal will be to protect something in the middle, and we'll have to use our giant strength to do it. Alright, again, it's a pretty simple premise, just protect what's in the middle. The biggest challenge here is numbers. I don't think there's a ton of terribly, like, durable enemies, not a bunch of guys who are gonna, like, take a lot of hits or anything, but there's a lot of, like, little spiderlings and chompies, and they show up in large numbers, and if you're not prepared, they can suddenly do a lot of damage unexpectedly. So the main thing is to try and be quick and cover as much of the field as possible. That's why I thought the ability to fly around and shoot lasers pretty rapidly would be a good matchup for this one. The biggest threat comes later on. I think it's in round 3 of this challenge, when we're faced with some Trog enemies, the zombies who can regenerate, and not only can they be tough to kill quickly, they also have the ability to do a massive amount of damage. So if you happen to notice them coming, and I think they always come from the top of the arena, like the top of the screen sort of thing. So when you see them coming, you're going to want to try and take them out as soon as possible, because they can, I think each one of them takes out something like a layer and a half of the cake, which is a whole lot. I mean, this is coming from someone who really likes his cake, so he can tell you what a large amount of cake is. Of course, you can never have enough cake, so you can't have, like, too much cake. You can just have a lot of cake. Miscalculated a little bit on the timing of my flying. That's probably the biggest thing to keep in mind if you're playing with Eyebrow like I am, is that even though all of his flight abilities are leveled up, here's the Trogs. Like I said, they're coming from the top part of the screen, but there's a lot of them. It's very difficult to sort of stop all of them. There's actually even more than I remembered. Now, it looks like I've taken care of that wave. I don't think there's any more in this wave. I thought they actually came at the start of 3 and not at the end of wave 2. But, yeah, pretty straightforward. Just take everyone out. Speed is very helpful, which is why I went for the flying giant. Oh, there are some more Trogs. Okay. I guess it's just the bulk of them come in that wave that we've already encountered. Actually doing a pretty good job here. Usually, I've done this with a couple Skylanders in the past, both when I, like, first played through this game and trying to remind myself exactly how these challenges worked. And usually by this point I'm down to like 1 or 2 layers of cake, which is not all that much in the scheme of things. That can be taken out pretty quickly. We're also facing some Shadow Dukes here now that we're at the end. One hit from them does a ton of damage to the cake, so again, just try and take these guys out as quickly as possible. And also, be mindful of the fact that these little spiderlings, I think maybe even a couple other minor enemies show up at the end, just to make it even more stressful. But the biggest thing to keep in mind is just to clear the field. So playing with a Skylander who can either move very quickly or someone who has a good like range of attack with their abilities, those will be key for taking this one down. Again, we are rewarded with a large sum of gold and the inability to speak English, as it turns out. And it's almost 2,000 gold for just one challenge. Pretty impressive. Let's see what we can get in the next challenge, though. Next up, our dragon robot friend, Meta Ridley, is going to take on the Trog Trouble challenge, which is very much like the Don't Beam Me Up challenge from last time, except that, well, it's harder. This set of challenges is harder. Alright, again, we're going to be seeing a lot of Trog zombie-type characters in this one, because we're trying to defeat them before the various tractor beams around the arena, these glowing things, manage to fully absorb the Trog guys. Again, I'm not really sure what the alien abduction thing is or why we care that it's happening. I don't think there's ever been any, like, alien characters in the Skylands, at least not that we've met so far. So it seems a little odd, but, yeah, this works very much like the last one. Again, it's the sort of thing where once you've taken out a certain number of the Trogs, they can't possibly reach the critical mass of 10 getting beamed up that it takes in order for you to lose this challenge. So it's kind of hard to count them like while you're playing, so I'll count them up when I'm editing the episode together in the end, and point out to you guys exactly how many you need to save by destroying. Again, the logic doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, you're gonna want like either like a quick rate of attack or like very powerful attacks in order to take out these guys before they get beamed up. Now, a lot of Skylanders are capable of it, but when things start getting stressful in the later rounds, it's very helpful to be able to take them out quickly so they can't regenerate, because once they start doing that, oh, it's just a headache. So that's why I've chosen Drobot as my champion for this particular set. The Buzzblades might be useful in a pinch, but we all know that the Master Blaster lasers are where it's really at. They can really take out most types of enemies pretty quickly. I think this was one that was giving me trouble in the past because of these, the bombs from the Archean bombers. And, like, I don't know, just when you sort of get, like, focused on trying to take out one of the Trog guys because they have so much health, sometimes you can lose track of, like, the details around you, and then you end up with a bomb exploding over your head because you didn't even notice it there. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys are always aware of the bombs floating over your head. I don't know. It's tough to say. To each his own. But, yeah, the little Trog pinchers can be annoying, but they're not a huge threat, and also they're disposed of pretty easily. What you do have to watch out for are guys like the Trogmander, who can make very large, very dangerous enemies out of the little Trog pinchers. Also, you want to try and destroy those, like, capsules that fall from the sky pretty quickly. I would say the main things to focus on are the Trogmanders and those capsules, because those are the things that are going to generate the biggest problems for you, generally speaking. The capsules can spawn a bunch of the Mace Majors. I think they may even be able to spawn other types of enemies, but that's definitely the kind I see the most often. Mace Majors just being a little orange melee attacking trolls, but in large groups they can get annoying, especially if they're distracting you from your goal of taking out all of the Trogs. And as I mentioned, the Trogmanders just sort of make a big problem out of these little guys. They have a lot of health, they take up a big space on the field, and it can cause you a lot of problems. Again, speaking of large problems on the field, not only do we have one of the large Trog pincher guys, we also now have a Crystal Golem. Now I'm probably at the point already where I don't need to worry about defeating more Trogs, but I still like to do as many as possible just to feel safe. Again, I don't actually have the number calculated already as to how many you need to save in order to survive. For some reason I thought I was attacking the pincher guy, but no, I was attacking the Crystal Golem, who still had the protection of his crystals. Okay, let's see if we can take that out. Great. We avoided that attack. Do a little dance. Yeah, I got your number. Oh, another one of these alien spawning pod things. I think of those as being alien just because they sort of drop out of the sky. They also don't show up in very many levels, if any. I can't think of them off the top of my head. Well, let's get rid of this Trogmander before he makes another one of these jerks. Don't like them. Now we'll boost our way out of danger. Good, we've taken care of that guy. Looks like one got beamed up, but we can certainly afford to lose one. Got several more coming, though. Luckily, Meta Ridley's such a powerhouse that he can clear out the enemies before all of these Trogs show up. It can be a real problem if you've gotten a couple abducted already, and then you just sort of like find yourself swarmed not only with enemies, but also these very resilient zombies. But because we're so powerful, this is no challenge at all to us, despite the fact that it is called an arena challenge. I think you know what I mean. Anyway, we've got 2,000 gold for that, which is a nice haul. Maybe I can use this gold to buy some extra sky stones or hats or something to show off. I don't know. At this point, I think we're all set for upgrades, but that doesn't mean we're all set with our training. No, we've got a couple more challenges to go. Let's head on right to the next one. Next up, Laboon is going to have a bad idea. This one's very much like the Cloudy Curse from our first set of arena challenges, the Rump, Roaster, Ruckus. Except, again, the enemies are a little bit more difficult, and, well, I find that the sheep themselves are something of a distraction. They're the thing that's going to be attacking us today, and, well, you judge for yourself. So, yeah, again, the premise is pretty simple. We have some ghostly sheep who are attacking us. Maybe they're the ghosts of sheep who we knocked around in the last game, something along those lines. Not entirely sure, but we're going to keep taking damage from them, and the only way to stop ourselves from being knocked out by it is to defeat enemies who are going to drop food at a much higher rate than normal. I've never actually noticed if all of them do it, or if just most of them do it. It seems like the vast majority do, either way. Oh, again, you're going to want to try and dispose of these, I still don't know what to call them, like alien spawner things, pretty quickly. They can generate a lot of problems for you very quickly. This is also the only challenge, I believe this is the only challenge in this set, in the Pipsqueak's Mincemeat Mayhem, whatever this one's called in particular, that runs for more than 3 rounds. This one is a 4-rounder. Gotta get behind the stupid shield guys. I'm actually really glad that this set of challenges does not have nearly as many of the inhuman shields as the last one, because that was what was really getting me down about the last set. As such, I think the second set of challenges is actually my least favorite. There's just so many of the enemies I find most annoying. And that's not to say that this isn't more difficult, because I genuinely believe it is. There's a lot of these bark demons who are pretty resilient, and they pack a pretty serious punch if you let yourself get hit by them, which I actually thought I did just there. I got a little bit lucky. As you can see, this thing is spawning a bunch of those mace majors, as I've already pointed out. Something else worth pointing out about this particular challenge is the fact that certain attacks can be cancelled by the constant damage done by these sheep. I don't have like a comprehensive list or anything like that, but for example, I was trying to play this with Ghost Roaster, who I got from the Adventure Pack in the first game, and I noticed that he was unable to do his like skull dash attack because anytime he would try to start it, he would take damage and it would cancel the attack. Now, I would imagine this probably applies to a couple of other Skylanders, but again, I don't know specifically which ones. Something to watch out for. It's certainly a problem for some. Bark Demon doesn't do quite as much damage as I remember. Either that or I got hit by the Inhuman Shield. Wasn't paying super close attention. I really like the Bark Demons here this time around. Yeah, I sort of walked into that one. Kind of deserved the damage from it. Let's see if I can... No, still ended up doing the first combo instead of the Whirlpool Ripper. And it's surprisingly difficult to pull off. I mean, especially since, you know, I had an additional combos character in the last game, a Stealth Elf, and I had no trouble pulling off her extra moves, so I don't know why this one's so difficult for me. Maybe something about the timing, maybe something about the fact that he's a giant, I really don't know. But it's kind of annoying to me. Still, one of the things I find most challenging about this particular arena challenge is that, especially with smaller Skylanders, which is rare because usually they're just sort of like more effective than their giant counterparts in my opinion. But with smaller Skylanders, I've found that it can sometimes be confusing as to what's going on directly around you when the sheep are sort of like flocking around you, I guess. So it's something to watch out for, that they can be distracting, and sometimes they can hide the enemies from you. But other than that, this is a very straightforward challenge. One thing, I think you can also, if you just stay here long enough and take damage from the sheep while you're just on this screen, I think your Skylander can actually get, like, knocked out, which I don't think actually gives you any, like, negative side effects, but it's really dumb, and it makes me mad. Anyway, that's another challenge down, and just a couple left to go. We're making good progress through here. So let's take on the next one, shall we? Next on our list is the Bubble Buster Challenge. Now, this one is very similar to Force Field Frenzy and an Early Fall from the previous two sets, except that, well, let's just talk about the hazards of this one while we're playing with Falco. Alright, so, again, in case you hadn't seen those previous two challenges, the premise here is that the enemies are shielded and won't take damage from our attacks as normal. The only way to get rid of them is to knock them into hazards around the level. The only problem here is that the hazards are extremely hazardous. So, like, you see how the Buzzsaw can do, you know, over 100 damage? I've seen it do as much as, like, 300 in one shot, which, you know, that's a lot of damage. And, you know, it does that to the enemies directly, which is what lets them get sort of, like, defeated instantaneously, so you don't have to keep knocking all of the enemies into the hazards. The only problem with that is that you're going to be taking that same amount of damage. The traps aren't, like, scaled for you and the enemies individually. Another one of the problems here is that there's, like, a big swarm and not a lot of space to try and, like, run or hide from them. So I find this to be easily the most difficult of the shielded enemy challenges, because it's actually easier to fight large enemies under these circumstances, in my opinion anyway, because they're larger targets, and so it's easier to knock them into the various hazards. With all of these chompies, oh goodness, it's a real headache. It really just gets on my nerves. This is one of the more difficult challenges of the entire set of them, in my opinion. Maybe not the single most, just because, you know, the traps can do a lot of damage, especially if you're, like, unprepared for them. But if you know it's coming, you can do a pretty good job of avoiding them most of the time. But, like, that can be a problem, and just the fact that you can't hurt them and they're swarming you, they're able to do, like, little bits of incidental damage, and over time that can add up and be a real problem for you. But it's also just, like, a real, like, test of endurance, because, like, as I've pointed out, let's just bomb this guy. Even their own bombs, like, you might think that the bombs they throw at you is something you could use to damage them, but no. Ugh, there's so many chompies. It just wears me down every time I play this, how many chompies there are and how hard it is to, like, knock them into the fans. And it's not even just because they're such a small target that a lot of attacks, like especially like the ranged ones, might have difficulty. I mean, can I get this way? This is a pretty good haul. Let me just, but it's also the fact that there's such small enemies that even when you are hitting them with your perhaps narrow ranged attacks, they will sometimes, like, bounce off the walls and avoid the traps because they just, like, have so much momentum. It can be very difficult to clear all of the enemies in this. Now, it's not the most threatening challenge, but it is definitely challenging and frustrating. More so than some, I would say. Surprisingly, this time around, I wouldn't say that the most difficult challenge is actually the last one. In the past, the no-hit kill, or the one-hit kill, rather, where, like, you can't take any damage, or else you, like, automatically lose the challenge, those have easily been the most difficult. And while we have another one of those this go-around, and it is very difficult, I actually find the second to last one to be the most difficult. We'll talk more about that later. For now, we have, surprise, surprise, a Chompy who doesn't want to get killed by the fan blade. Good grief, it's annoying. It's also interesting how much timing can affect this challenge, more so than others. Because depending on, like, when certain waves start, like, enemies may... Oh, goodness, look at all these stupid bombs! Yeah, the bombs are, like, the other really big hazard, other than the saw blades. Like, their explosion radius is sometimes just inexplicably way bigger than it should be. So, like, you'll just get hit. Like, I really didn't think I was anywhere close to those bombs, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but, like, if I was near bombs, I would have run away from the bombs. At least if I was aware of it. At the very least, you can easily get distracted by trying to, like, take out one threat, and then the bombs are just in the middle of the field. And that's really frustrating to me. Just, like, look how much damage I took from that one blast. Also, it's important to point out that unlike many other challenges, there are no healing items in this one. So if you take, like, a major hit from the fan blades, or the saws, rather... Oh, come on. That was such a cheap shot. How did he not end up getting hit by the, like... saw blade as well? Oh goodness, another bomb? That's just what I needed. Ugh, leave me alone! I really hate the juggernauts in this. Alright, he's down. I'm very close to being down. I really gotta... Oh! Leave me alone, you stupid bombers! Ugh, I hate them so much. They're usually not a big threat. But, in this particular case, especially because there's, like, no chance to heal unless you level up, they can be really damaging, because, like, just one or two cheap shots can really, like, spell your disaster. Ugh, almost got hit by that guy, even. Can we just, like, get out of my way, you guys? Can we just, like, stand in the way of, the destructive fan blades and just chill out a little bit? Just gonna try and get rid of this guy real quick. Okay. I'm hoping this is the last enemy, but it is not. Okay. I thought that might be too easy, even though that wasn't easy at all. There we go, got rid of him. Hoping we don't see another Juggernaut. They can be very difficult to dodge. But even the Chompies are going to pose me a big problem with just 26 health left. Gotta try and stay out of the way of the Duelist. That's good. I'm going to use the Jetpack to avoid these guys. Ugh. It'd be really nice and impressive if I could actually get out of this one alive. And it's going to be extra frustrating if I manage to lose it after hanging on for so long. Now, I think we're in the home stretch. I don't know how many more enemies we're going to have, but it's very difficult to get the Chompies to stay in the path of the Fan Blade. And, with such low health, I can't even really afford to take, like, any hits at this point, so I can't, like, try and just, like, take them on one at a time if there's a chance the other ones are gonna, like, come after me as well. See? Look how very close I am to dying, and that was just because I tried to do exactly what I was talking about. And it's a big risk, but you gotta take care of these guys at some point. Man, can you just leave me alone, Chompies? Alright, with just one down, if this really is the last enemy, then I might be good. Come on, hit the blade. Are we good? Oh, man. It was really close, but it feels very good to have accomplished that one. Yeah, again, I've mentioned in the past similar challenges that the most important thing is to find a Skylander whose attack has a good amount of knockback and a pretty good, especially in this case, a pretty good ability to definitely hit small enemies. So maybe like larger projectiles if you have a Skylander capable of doing such a thing. Anyway, that was hard fought. Let's hope the next one isn't quite as challenging, although it really is gonna be. Alright, we're on challenge 6 of 7, because every wave has 7, which means this is the second to last challenge, the one I mentioned previously, that is particularly difficult. Icy Blast. This one's kind of similar to Sky Lasers from the last one, in that hazards are going to fall from the sky, except it is not that easy to dodge them. Simply moving isn't good enough. Let's see if I can demonstrate that without getting killed in the process. I figure there's no better choice to defeat the Icy Blast than my Fire Skylander, Rush. And there's actually a very particular reason I've chosen him, and it doesn't have to do with fire presumably beating ice. It actually has to do with the fact that I find the most important aspect to successfully completing this challenge without a lot of stress and repeated attempts is a good area of effect attack, and I think the firewall is going to be our best bet at that. The problem isn't just that, well, let's talk about these hazards real quick, because they're the defining feature of this particular challenge, and it's important to have a handle of, okay, so, to demonstrate my earlier point, this one seems to be generating D-Riveters instead of just Mace Majors, so those things can generate enemies other than Mace Majors, even though that's usually what you see. So these ice crystal things, they drop as a small ball, sort of similar to the smokescreen challenges in the past, but then they have a large explosion radius. And not only is that difficult to dodge, because sometimes it's hard to see it coming, and you can't attack the ice balls on the ground like you can with the smokescreen things to stop them, there's no way to stop these smoke bombs from, or rather these ice bombs from blowing up and causing damage. There's just no way to do it. But I find the biggest problem here is actually the fact that the ice crystals, especially if they appear like on the lower parts of the screen, can sort of just like eclipse a large area of the screen, and you won't know where the enemies are coming from, or if you're about to be attacked. Like, it can cause real problems. So that's why I think it's really important to have good area of effect attacks, is just because, like, you can sort of launch them, and enemies might walk into them accidentally, or a number of things can happen to keep things from getting too... Wow, what even... Oh, did I get hit by the ice crystal? See, the radius on those is huge. Sometimes, even when you're not close to them, you can still take hits from them. It's really just hard to tell when you're safe and when you're not. That's the biggest challenge here. And that's why I think this is actually even slightly more difficult than the don't get hit challenge, which is still very difficult. Also, there's a couple of large enemies. We've seen the slobbering guys, and those guys can be a particularly big problem. Come on, just take the damage. Those guys can be a particularly big problem if, like, you can't tell what's going on because you're trying to avoid all of the falling ice bombs and all that. And then all of a sudden one of them, like, leaps from across the screen and does, like, a huge swipe at you and, like, takes out half of your health. Well, that can be just a real doozy of a problem. More derivators, that's cool. And by cool, I mean not cool, but there's a lot of ice here, so I guess it's cold at the very least. Can we fight fire with fire? I think we can. Let's try and dodge the derivator here. Oh, come on. What a cheap shot. Alright, let's try and take out the Blaze Brewer. These ice bombs, particularly in the third wave, you're going to encounter just a lot of these ice bombs falling very rapidly. So, like, a just keep moving strategy really doesn't work here. You have to be mindful of your surroundings, because they can drop right on top of you while you're trying to take out, like, a heavy-duty enemy and just ruin your plans. And, you know, deal a good amount of damage. So I guess they could be ruining your health as well. Gonna get hit by that probably. Nope, just barely managed to avoid it. See, a good area of effect is important here because all the enemies, like, line up in their efforts to chase you. And that, I don't know, it makes it a lot easier to take them out if you can sort of just, like, launch a big firewall and, like, take out a bunch of guys without having to, like, face them each, oh goodness, one-on-one. I think we're definitely getting close to the end. This actually might be our last enemy at this point. Let's see if we can take him out. There we go. And is that the end of it? Excellent. Not too much trouble that time around, but it can be very difficult, especially depending on which particular Skylander you bring to the fight. A lot of them can handle this one, but it takes a lot of skill, and I think something like a wide range attack like the firewall that can sort of hit a lot of enemies without you having to focus on them, that can make this a lot easier than it has to be. Alright, so with challenge number 6 completed, there's just one more to do, and I think you could probably guess what that means. The final challenge, You Only Live Once, is yet another one where you can't take any hits. You have to take absolutely no damage or else you will lose the challenge, and you will do so instantly no matter how far you are into it, which is particularly frustrating this time around because it's very easy to get taken out by the final wave of enemies. Alright, let's see if we can take this on. I'm going to be using Yoshi, our camo character. I think he's got the skills to get this done, but it's going to be a challenge either way. Hope I don't have to try this too many times. Alright, again, one hit and you're done for. This is another one where your health is immediately reduced to 1, and any type of damage at all is going to take you out. The ability to move pretty quickly is nice. Gotta watch out for the hazards, of course. They are not going to let up. And of course, they start off not pulling any punches. They've got armored enemies, which can take a pretty significant beating, and they have ranged attacks, making it even more frustrating because they can shoot you from across the arena. We've got our first large type enemy here with a crystal golem. We'll be seeing more of him later on. Again, his strategy is pretty straightforward, but when you can't take any hits at all, you can't take any chances. And because you can't take any hits, the Enfuego Chompies are actually surprisingly threatening this time around. Normally any type of Chompy isn't that big of a threat, but the Enfuego ones can explode, and they can start trying to get ready to explode even before you're, like, trying to attack them. So, like, if you get up close to them accidentally, they can blow up and just take you out instantly. So be mindful of that, and of course the traps as always. The traps are a big problem, especially early in each wave, and there's a lot of enemies on the screen. Now speaking of early in the wave, this time around we're going to be seeing some Trogmanders early on. I think they show up in the southern area, the bottom of the screen. I'm correct. And you want to take them out early because you don't want to be facing those giant Trog pincher guys. I forget the name for the big form of them, but you don't want to be facing them down if you don't have to. They are awful. We've got some more Trogmanders who show up to support, and of course we've got a alien spawner type dealie, making more of them for the giant Trog guys, or rather for the Trogmanders to make into giant Trog guys. So you might even actually want to focus on trying to get rid of the spawner first, because it reduces their ability to suddenly make those large enemies. Now that we've cleared those guys out, gotta watch for falling enemies. Now they're really not pulling any punches. They're coming from all sides, from up above where you can't see them coming. The larger enemies, you can see their shadows when they start doing this, but the smaller ones, and again, even the chompies can be very threatening here. So it's very important to be mindful of your surroundings and just keep moving as much as possible. One of the problems is that these two crystal golems like to spawn very close to the edge of the level, which will mean... Gotta watch out! Okay, which will mean that the buzzsaw will be very close by and can do you some damage. Actually, does the buzzsaw deactivate in this stage? I always sort of assumed it was working. There's so much chaos going on. Not the capital K kind of chaos, mind you, just the regular, like, I can't tell what the heck's going on because there's so many fireballs and things that I had never actually noticed the fact that it looks like the buzzsaw stops sawing at this stage of the fight, which is actually quite nice. Now, like I said, this is the stage of the fight where no matter how close to the end you get, it can actually still be very easy to get taken out. So you gotta be careful, because with all the chompies running around when these guys first spawn, it's really easy to get taken out. But if you have a chance to memorize the layout of when and where the troublesome enemies spawn...
Pipsqueak, Mincemeat, Mayhem, decimated!
Actually, I'm pretty proud of how that all turned out. Didn't end up having to spend more than one try on any one of these challenges, and some of them are very difficult. But again, even if you have to play through it a couple of times, memorizing the patterns in which the troublesome enemies emerge, that can really make the difference between succeeding and failing at these challenges. Anyway, we've succeeded, just as I'd hoped, so let's see what our prize was. We've got another charm, so let's go check it out back on the Dread Yacht. Alright, I can't contain my excitement any longer. What does that charm do? It's our third one. The Bright Blade. Skylanders are much more likely to score a critical hit when at full health. Well, that can definitely be very useful. Especially if you're in a fight where you're outclassing your opponents but they're trying to swarm you. It means that you can take them out very easily. And there's certain Skylanders also with the ability to regenerate health in various ways. For example, our friend Yoshi. And I'll probably be demonstrating that in the next episode when we get our final upgrades and prepare to take down Kaos for good. Or so we hope. Anyway, I'm gonna psych myself up between episodes, and we'll be ready to take him down next time. So you guys get excited, and I'll see you very soon to put an end to his evil schemes.